Good afternoon. I'm Mike Jones. This is Cindy Jones. We are here live today on YouTube. As you can tell, as we are every week, we're here to talk about real estate, especially real estate in Jacksonville, Florida, where we work. And we're here to answer any questions that you might have. And today, we're actually going to be talking about, because we get asked all the time when we go to meet home sellers, is should they go ahead and get an appraisal done on their house? So we're going to talk about that, answer any questions that you might have. So make sure that if you're watching and you have a question, you just type it in the chat box. We'll see it over here and then we will answer it. Anyways, before we get started, I am new, the proud papa, new iPhone. I have been an Android dedicated phone guy for a long time, even though I use an iMac on my desktop computer, and I use a MacBook Pro. I've used those for years. I love Apple computers, but I just did not want to make the switch to the iPhone. But I did yesterday, and actually I'm pretty impressed so far. So anybody who is an Apple fan knows what I'm going through right now. A little bit about the Jacksonville real estate market last month, October. There was 2,050 homes sold in our area, Northeast Florida. That makes up about 5 counties. And 294 condos sold. We're still looking at a pretty good, robust real estate market here in the Jacksonville area. Kind of neat, though. The most expensive condo that sold, it was in Fernandina Beach, oceanfront condo, and here's the view here. It actually sold for $1,575,000. A beautiful condo right there on the beach. And then the cheapest, or not the cheapest, I want to say the least expensive condo actually sold for $38,000. Now that oceanfront condo actually sold in 55 days, which is amazing. So that just kind of gives you an example of how things are going here. And in case you don't know, in case you're watching this from anywhere in the country, our median sales price in our area is about $215,000. So a house that sells for $1.5 million is on the very high end here. I know in California, $1.5 million is nothing. But here, like I said, in Northeast Florida, our median sales price is $215,000. So the cheapest condo, like I said, sold for $38,000. And then we have the houses that sold. The most expensive house that sold, very nice, $6,050,000. Now this is an incredible house. You know, when you talk about having a north end garage and a south end garage, that's some impressive home. But here's a few more pictures for you. This one sold for $6,050,000. This one only took about 158 days to sell. There's the pool. Look at that. The pool that overlooks the ocean there. Incredible house. Very nice. Like I said, it sold for $6,050,000, and I have 2 pictures of the same thing. I apologize. Here's just kind of a overall view of this house. Incredible house. And the weird thing is about all these houses that I just showed you, the cheapest condo, the most expensive condo, the cheapest house, and the most expensive house, all sold for cash. Yeah. So there are a lot more homes these days that are selling for cash. And if you have the means to do it, I would suggest that's the best way to go, because you're going to save a whole lot of interest. Especially, can you imagine on a $6 million house what the interest would be over a 15 or 30-year mortgage?
I just got looking at the roof line on this. I'm just wondering.
Wondering
Replace
what?
the roof, how much that would cost on that one.
Well, it'd be nice. Well, you know, it's like buying a yacht. You don't worry about what the
No,
fuel costs.
I know. I just happened to be looking at
Anyway.
the roof on that.
We appreciate you being here. That's just a little bit about the real estate market in Jacksonville. Now, actually, we have we're still in a very healthy or very good seller's market. A normal market where the buyers and sellers are about even, whether it's a buyer's seller's market, it's right in the middle, is around 6 months of inventory. And right now, as you can see here, we are looking at about 3.6 months of inventory. So it's still a very strong seller's market in our area. However, that doesn't mean that you can overprice your house. Mm-hmm. The houses that are selling are priced at market value or a little bit below, and they're conditioned very, very nice. Whether they're professionally staged, painted, just gone through top to bottom. And they also these are all represented by a real estate agent who's handling all the marketing and the negotiations. So keep that in mind. If you've got to sell a house, it is a great time to sell, and we can help you in any regards, whether you're buying or selling a house. But you got to be priced properly. That's very important. So we wanted to talk about whether or not you should get. Let me rephrase this. Let me start this out.
Yes.
We get questions throughout our day, every day, about real estate and things like that. The other day, we got an offer from another agent, and not our buyer, the other agent's buyer, on one of our listings, about the $450,000 range. Mm-hmm. And while we were going through this, we explained to the seller that this offer was contingent on the buyer obtaining financing. Now, the buyer had a pre-approval letter, which is normal. But they still have to put in the financing contingency, and it's typically 30 days to get financing. The seller's question to us was...
She actually asked me, what percentage of our sales fall apart due to the buyer ending up not being able to get qualified in the end? Like, once they go through that process, what's the percentage that actually fall apart? And I got to thinking about that for financing. I got to thinking about that, and I got to thinking, wow, you know what? I couldn't think. It took me quite a while to remember, even thinking back years in my mind. Earlier this spring, we did have one that did not go through due to financing. It was a very small program that this buyer was going through. Not our buyer, but we had the listing. That one this year did fall apart due to they ended up not being able to get qualified for their financing. But other than that one this year,
we did have one where it was a $550,000 house where the appraisal came in low.
Well, I'm just talking about just because the buyer did not qualify. Other than that one, we did have one that had the appraisal came in low, therefore they couldn't get the loan.
Well, they could have still got the loan, but the seller did not want to adjust, and it was a pretty big difference from the price of the offer versus what the appraisal came in.
Right.
And the seller wasn't in a position to lower it to that, so the deal fell out. So really, if your appraisal comes in below the offer price or the price of the offer, unless that buyer wants to pony up that money, they're not going to get the financing for it. So technically it did fall out for financing. But financing is not our issue. And our numbers that we're talking about, Cindy and Mike Jones.
Right.
And one of the reasons why we have very few deals fall out for financing is...
When we work with a buyer, we make sure we sit down with them and consult with them and make sure that they are already pre-qualified prior to us going and showing them properties, and that we actually already talk with their lender to make sure if they foresee any hurdles, just do all the best that we can to not have somebody fall apart because of financing. We want to make sure that they've gone as far as they can in their financing process,
qualification,
even if it's full approval, to make sure that does not happen. And then also, even though we have a lot of listings, when the buyer's agent brings us an offer and the pre-qualification letter, we also call that lender and talk with them as well to see if they foresee any hurdles, and we actually talk with them to kind of gain a bit of knowledge. Now, they don't give us the personal financial information. I'm not talking about that. But we just kind of chat with them and say, hey, how far have you gone with this qualification? Have you already pulled their credit? How far are you along in this? Because we at least want to make sure that the buyers have actually contacted the lender and they got that pre-qualification from the lender.
Well, and the reason why we do that, and I'm going back to where we're getting an offer on our listing from another agent and another agent's buyer. We never present any offers to our sellers without a pre-approval letter from a lender, or if they're paying cash, a proof of funds. When we get that pre-approval letter with the offer, what we'll do is we'll take the time to call that lender and speak with them about, like she said, how far in the process they've gotten with that buyer. Because here's what you need to be concerned with. If you're not represented by an agent, or if you are represented by an agent, or if you're selling your house on your own, that buyer, any buyer, can actually go online and just input the information. There's plenty of online lenders. They just can input the information and it'll spit out a pre-qualification letter. So it'll do it based on the information that the end user provides. So there's a lot of buyers out there that can just go on there and just skew the numbers so they can get a pre-qual letter and go out and see houses with, a lot of agents these days ask for that before they'll actually work with a buyer. So that's why we take the time to actually call those lenders before we actually meet with our sellers to present the offers, because we want them to feel a little bit more confident, although it's not a guarantee, but more confident that the deal will go through in the end. But financing is not the problem with most of our deals.
Right.
Most of our deals,
and this is deals across the board, not just our deals. This is deals across the board.
What's the main reason that a real estate transaction falls apart?
The home inspection.
Well, not necessarily the home inspection, but the fact that the buyer and seller can't come together on repair issues.
Right. Once the home inspection is completed and the buyer looks at the home inspection report, they fill out a repair request with the agent and then submit that to the seller, and then that's where they tend to not be able to come together on agreeing on what repairs the seller is going to do and what the buyer is agreeing to that. So that's where a third of the deals fall apart at the repair request phase.
And what I want to say here is, as a home seller, you have to realize that when a buyer makes an offer on your house, it doesn't matter if you just lowered it $25,000. It doesn't matter. That buyer is under the assumption when they make their offer that all the major systems in that house are in working order. Okay? So a lot of times sellers will go, well, I lowered my price to this, so I'm not going to fix the roof. Well, the problem is the buyer in their mind that didn't know that there was a problem with the roof. So this is where the issue comes in. So you have to realize too, if there's a problem with your roof with this buyer, and you decide that you're not going to fix it and you can't come to terms and the deal falls through, your next buyer is going to have most likely the same problem. So I can understand nitpicky things, like loose doorknobs and just ridiculous stuff. But the major systems in your house need to be in working order unless you disclose ahead of time that, well, my air conditioner is about to break, or I got a roof leak, or you're selling your house as is. Now we could spin off a million videos of this. If you're selling your house as is, it doesn't mean that the buyer has to make an offer and go through with it. It's that the buyer still has a right to do a home inspection, or all inspections that they want to, and they still have the right to back out if they don't like the results of those home inspections. But that's another topic for another day. Here comes Charlie.
Here comes Charlie. Give him a treat. Come
Charlie
here,
used to be in our videos with us, but we moved his couch, so
come here, come up
he's
here.
not in there anymore. But he's always in the room.
Okay.
But anyway, let's get back to the topic of this week's show, and that is, if you're going to go list your house, should you get a professional appraisal done before you list it? And here's what I like to say, and I'm going to try and stay on track. I say no, unless you're in a circumstance where you have a very unique property, or there are no properties or recent sales to compare your house to try to come up with a value. Here's what happens. If you call an appraiser today and say, hey, I just want you to come and appraise my house and tell me what you think it would sell for in today's market, that's fine. He's going to tell you what, based on recent sales, here's what it'll sell for. But you got to remember, here's where this came to be. We were talking with another home seller about pricing. And our data, our recent solds, we took over the recent solds in the area, like-minded properties and square footage, geographical area that sold within the last 90 days. And we came up with a price that was much different than theirs. And I asked, well, where did you get your price from? He says, well, I had an appraisal done. I said, oh, great. So I thought that was it. If you've got an appraisal, then I'm not going to do that. I said, when did you get the appraisal done? He goes, oh, about 3 years ago. No good. An appraisal is very tiny snapshot it's a snapshot in a small window of time.
Yeah.
And if you've got an appraisal that's over 90 days, you might as well forget it. Things change in real estate as far as values in 30 and 60 day periods. So all the sales that close in the next 30 days will determine the values of any properties that come on the market after that. Does that make sense? So when we're trying to find the value of a property today, we're looking back 30, 60, 90 days to determine that value. And if you get, and for instance, he may have had that appraisal. He didn't have that appraisal because he was selling. I don't know what the reason was, but it wasn't at the time because he was selling. But people will sometimes get appraisals because they are going to do a refinance. Sometimes they want to take a home equity line out. There's a lot of reasons that people get appraisals done. What happens is an appraiser, before they go, if you're selling your house and you've got a contract, a buyer is ready, willing, and able to pay X amount of dollars for your house. The appraiser gets a copy of that contract, and they know what the buyer is willing to pay. And that little statement, what the buyer is ready, willing, and able to pay for your house, pulls a lot of weight in your appraisal. So anytime someone's going to get a mortgage on a house, when they go to buy it, an appraisal is going to be required, and their lender has to order the appraisal. So don't think that you can have the appraisal done and give it to the lender because it does not work that way. If you have an appraisal done and there's a buyer in the wings waiting to buy it, then that is your best shot at getting the most value for your house. What else did I want to say? I was trying to stay on track, but there's so many different directions we can go just on this subject too. I want to stay within our time frames today. Another thing is I've had other sellers that price their house based on an old appraisal and they stick to that number. And every time you try to have a conversation with them about why their house isn't selling, and it's most of the time it's because of price, they want to go, well, I've got an appraisal at this. Well, it doesn't matter. And here's one thing that's funny about sellers. If they have an appraisal done today and 30 days from now that price drops, they want to hold on to that appraised price. But I'll bet you if 30 days later that the value goes up and it's more than that appraisal, they're going to want to raise that price. Right. You just can't have it both ways. Mm-mm. So here's what I like to say. If you think you want to get an appraisal done, you can, but you can't hold on to that price, because really the definition of an appraisal is an opinion of value. Right. An opinion of value. Okay? But an appraiser is certified by the state that they work in to give their opinion of value. So here's what you need to realize. Just because you have an appraisal on file, even if it's recent, even if it was done today, if you don't have a buyer ready, willing, and able to buy that house at that price, that is not what that house is worth. Mm-hmm. That's a true statement. If you have a very unique property, just say that you're in the middle of town and you have 15 acres and all the other houses around you are quarter-acre lots, well, then you're probably going to want to get an appraisal, okay? That's when it's a good time to get an appraisal done. What you need to do is if you're going to hire a realtor, price your house based on the data that they bring you. And the data that they bring you should be recent home sales within the last 60 to 90 days. If there's not a lot of sales, then they can start going back a little bit further. Definitely don't go past 6 months. Mm-hmm. But if you will look at those comparable sales objectively, you should be able to come up with a fair market value price for your home. Mm-hmm. Now, here's another argument. Well, Zillow says my house is worth X.
Oh, Zillow.
Zillow is not the place to figure out what your home's worth when you go to sell it. Mm-mm. I sell a lot of homes where the price that I sell it for is more than what the Zillow Zestimate said. Yep. Right, got one right now that's under contract. And what I'm starting to do is every time I list a house, right before I list it, I go to Zillow and I take a snapshot of what the Zestimate says, and then I compare it to the ultimate sales price. Most of the time, what we sell it for is more than Zillow. Mm-hmm. Okay? Case in point, I've got a pool home in Mandarin that went under contract. Zillow said it was worth $283,000. I sold it in 8 days for $300,000, and it appraised for $300,000. We had a seller tell us the other day. She said, we told her, all we're waiting on right now on this deal to close is waiting on the appraisal to come in. What'd she say? Oh, I'm not worried about that because Zillow says it's worth this. Well,
we'll wait and see.
It does not matter. Zillow is not, appraisers do not use Zillow when they go to value a home.
Zillow never comes to your house to actually look at your house and compare your house to comparables in your neighborhood. It's a computer generated number that's used by algorithms. They don't come to your house and do what we do, and they certainly don't do what appraisers do.
Well, now, when the market flips, though, here's what happens. Right now, you're seeing Zillow. And Zillow, if you read the fine print, if you go to Zillow, go down, you got to dig way down in the fine print, click on all kinds of links. You'll see by county what their error rate is. The last time I checked Duval County, which is the county that we work in the most, we work in a lot of counties around here, but Duval County is our main one. I think the last time I looked at Zillow, their error rate was 18%. 18% difference. That's a lot of money in your pocket, or that could be in your pocket.
That could lose you a lot of money if you just go by his estimate.
All I can tell you is do not go to Zillow to value your house. You're going to lose money, or you're going to overprice your house, depending on which, Zillow's wrong on both ways. They underprice and they overprice. We used to have to go in and fight. It's funny, when the market was, when it was a strong buyer's market, we used to have to go in and fight sellers because they say, well, Zillow says my house is worth this. And we'd have to say, there's no way it's worth that. It's worth way less. Thank God for the last few years, we've been on the other side of the fence, and we're going most of the time, not always. Most of the time, we're telling them your house is worth more than what Zillow says, because here's the data. Here's the data. I always bring the data. I never try to price a house without showing the data. As a matter of fact, we don't even price houses anymore. We don't.
Agents don't.
We provide the data and say, this house sold. We show the pictures and everything. And this house sold. It had this. It had a pool. It had this. What do you think your house is worth? And then I'll either decide whether I want to take that listing if it's within the range that I think it will sell, or I'll just get up and say, you know what, I'm not going to be able to get the job done for you. And that's it. Even though it's a seller's market right now in Northeast Florida, pricing is absolutely everything. There are so many houses. There's actually more houses at this time of year that are sitting on the market for longer than the average days on market, and they're getting more and more price reductions. And there's a pricing strategy that you need to be aware of when you're listing your house for sale. Is if you're overpriced even by a little bit, the first 3 weeks on the market's when you're going to get your most activity. If after that so you've got a pool of buyers at any given moment that are waiting for houses to come on the market that fit their needs, price range, and all that stuff. That first 3 weeks when your house goes on the market, all those buyers that are pent up demand are waiting. And if they reject your house because it's too high, now you got to wait on new buyers to trickle into the market. And what happens is you start having to do a price reduction, and you're going to end up taking less in the long run than you would have done if you would have priced it right from the beginning. I know that's a lot to sink in. I know it probably creates more questions in your mind than when you started, but we're here to help you. If you have questions about how to price your house or questions at all about real estate, we're always here to help you. My number's on the screen. You can call, text. You can actually put comments in this video. We check the comments all the time, and we'll answer. We'll be glad to help you any way we can to get your house priced properly and sell it for the most the market will bear. Okay? By the way, we can help you anywhere in the country. If you're watching the replay of this, if you need to buy or sell a house, we have been in the business for a long time. And we can help you find a realtor in your area that will specialize in either listing homes or helping you as a buyer. And we'll find one that will fit your needs and not ours or theirs. So if you need help in that direction, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be glad to help you. You can always catch me over on Instagram. I love to post things there. It's at Mike Jones Jacks, Florida. I post a lot of. I'm very visual. I'm a amateur photographer. I don't even think I'm that good yet. I'm not even really an amateur photographer.
He is good. He's very good.
But I love to take pictures.
Yeah.
Especially got a new iPhone now, so I'm going to really be taking a lot of pictures. I post pictures of just my daily routine, things I see around Jacksonville, which are very cool. Graffiti. I'm a graffiti nut now. I don't do graffiti, but when I see it, I like to take pictures of it, put it on Instagram.
Yeah, let's clarify that.
Places we like to go, things we like to do and see, motorcycles, all that kind of stuff. We put it on there, and we'd be happy to see you there. Have we got anything else to talk about?
We have another listing coming up, but it's a little pool house coming up.
Yes. We actually have one in Ponte Vedra that we talked about last week. Those folks are buying a new home, and they keep getting delayed. So now that one's not going to be available until mid-December, but it's a nice pool home in Ponte Vedra Beach. It's $650,000. It's pool to lake views, screened-in pool, great big house, beautiful house, 3-car garage. You're gonna like it if you're in the market for that. But we also just took a nice little pool home under the median price range here for a change, $145,000. Great big, sparkling in-ground pool out back. It's a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath. It's concrete block construction. About 10 years ago, there was a fire and all of the stuff got replaced. Even the ducting for the air conditioner got replaced. The cabinets in the kitchen got replaced. It's got stainless appliances. It has a little workshop. The laundry room is really big, and the previous owner used half of that as a sewing room. So you've got a lot of options there. The best thing about that house, though, is that pool and a private fenced backyard. But $145,000. It will be available on Saturday. This Saturday, it's going to go live, and I guarantee you, when we meet next week here on our live show, that one will probably be under contract.
It's going to go quick.
If that's something that you're looking for, you know somebody that is, give me a call. Again, my number is on the screen. It will be here shortly. You can reach out to us at any time. And I feel like we've been on the air for 30 minutes, but I don't know if we got everything out.
We start talking and we end up going over our 20 minutes. But anyway, we try to talk about everything that needs to be talked about. But everything we talk about can be a whole video in and amongst itself. So it just kind of creates bunny trails. So we try to make it really good and easy for y'all to understand. So we appreciate y'all being here. We really appreciate you being here and watching live with us today. Or if you're watching it a replay, we appreciate that as well.
So until next week, we'll be back here next Thursday at 3 o'clock. We hope that you'll join in. If you've got questions throughout the week about real estate, make sure that you just drop them in the comments there below. We'll check them before we come live. And if you want to ask your question next week live on the show, feel free to do that. Until then, we hope you have a fantastic weekend and stay safe.
Bye.